So this session will focus on ADB transport sector assistance highlights. And what we'd like to do is to showcase our most transformative and innovative projects to you, to also demonstrate to you the kind of impact that ADB projects have been making across our DMCs, and to discuss with you the future direction that ADB aims to steer our transport towards. So we have the packed agenda, and we'll start by 2 opening remarks, and that will be followed by 5 presentations that will showcase a variety of ADB projects across modes and across regions. So to kick off the session, I'd like to invite Mr. Telek Tekebaev, who is the Minister of Transport and Communications, Kyrgyz Republic, to make some brief remarks about ADB's assistance in the Kyrgyz Republic. Minister, please.
Урматтуу транспорт форумунун катышуучулары, урматтуу кесиптештер, экологиялык таза транспорт өнүктүрүүгө арналган бул маанилүү форумда Кыргыз Республикасынын атынан катышуу мен үчүн чоң сыймык. Мүмкүнчүлүктөн пайдаланып, Азия өнүктүрүү банкына чакырууга жана биздин өлкөгө көрсөткөн үзгүлтүксүз колдоосу үчүн чын жүрөктөн ыраазычылык билдирим келет. Азия өнүктүрүү банкынын транспорттук инфраструктурасын өнүктүрүүдө Кыргыз Республикасынын стратегиялык өнөктөштөрүнүн бири болуп саналат. Кыргызстан Азия өнүктүрүү банкына кирген 1994 жылдан бери биз транспорт тармагын модернизациялоого жана логистикалык процесстерге оптималдаштырууга багытталган олуттуу финансылык жана техникалык жардам алдык.
Dear participants of the Transport Forum, dear colleagues, it's a great honor for me to represent the Kyrgyz Republic at this important forum dedicated to the development of environmentally friendly transport. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to ADB for the invitation and continuous support extended to our country. ADB is one of the strategic partners of the Kyrgyz Republic in the development of transport infrastructure. Since 1994, we have received substantial financial and technical assistance aimed at modernizing the transport network and optimizing logistics.
Азия өнүктүрүү банкы негизги транспорттук коридорлордун жана аларга кошумча жолдордун реабилитациялоого кошкон олуттуу салымды өзүнчө белгилеп кетким келет. Бул аймактын сооданын кеңейишине жана ички байланыштын жакшырышына чоң өбөлгө түздү. Азия өнүктүрүү банкынын каржылоосунун аркасында биз Бишкек Нарын Торгат, Бишкек Ош Сары Таш Иркештам сыяктуу маанилүү транспорттук артерияларды калдына келтире алдык. Ошондой эле түндүк түштүк альтернативалык автожолдун тилкелерин куруп жатабыз. Балким бул жерде отургандардын көбү үчүн коридорлордун аттары көп деле мааниге эмес. Бирок аймактарда жашаган миллиондогон жарандарыбыз үчүн долбоорлуу экономикалык жана социалдык өнүгүүчү күчтүү түрткүсү болуп, жаңы мүмкүнчүлүктөрү жана перспективалар ачты.
Especially, I would like to emphasize ADB's significant contribution to the rehabilitation of key transport corridors and access roads. This has greatly facilitated the expansion of the regional trade and improved external connectivity. Thanks to ADB financing, we have been able to rehabilitate such transport corridors as Bishkek Nарын Торгат, Bishkek Osh Sары Таш Иркештам, and are also constructing the sections of North-South Alternative Road. Perhaps for the many here, the names of these corridors don't speak much. However, for millions of our people living in the regions, this project has become a powerful stimulus for economic and social development, opening up new opportunities and perspectives.
Бирок, жетишилген ийгиликтерге карабастан, Кыргызстанда заманбап жана эффективдүү транспорттук системаны түзүүлүү жолу тоскоолдуктарсыз эмес. Биздин өлкөбүздүн татаал тоолуу рельефи, жол курууну жана техникалык жактан тейлөөнү бир кыйла татаалдаштырылат жана кымбаттатат. Каржылоонун жетишсиздигинен жол жабындарынын сапатынын начарлана жана натыйжада транспорттук чыгымдардын көбөйүшүнө алып келет. Мындан тышкары транспорттун ар кандай түрлөрүнүн интеграциясы начар болгондуктан бүткүл логистика системасынын натыйжалуулугу чектелди. Бул кыйынчылыктардын кабар болуп, биз транспорт тармагын өнүктүрүү артыкчылык багыттарын аныктадык. Жолдорду реабилитациялоонун үзгүлтүксүз тейлөөгө жана активдерди башкаруу өтүү транспорт тармагынын узак мөөнөтү туруктуулугун жана колдо болгон ресурстардын сарамжалдуу пайдаланууга мүмкүндүк берет. Биздин негизи милдетибиз жол коопсуздугун жогорулатуу, ал инфраструктураны жакшыртуу, айдоо маданиятын жогорулатуу жана көзөмөлдү күчөтүү сыяктуу комплекстүү маанини талап кылат. Темир жол байланышын модернизациялоого, жолдору жана конструкцияларды жаңылоону, ошондой эле анын атаандаштыгына жөндөмдүүлүгүн жана натыйжалуулугун жогорулатуу үчүн темир жол транспортун уюштурууда реформалар жүргүзүүнү камтыйт. Транспорт жана логистика тармагында мамлекеттик жеке өнөктөштүгү өнүктүрүү, жеке инвестицияларды жана тажрыйбаны колдоону, амбициялуу долбоорлорду ишке ашырууга жана транспорт системасынын башкаруунун натыйжалуулугун жогорулатууга мүмкүндүк берет.
However, despite the progress made, the way to the modern and efficient transportation system in Kyrgyzstan still has obstacles. Our country has a complex mountainous terrain, which makes road construction and maintenance much more difficult and expensive. Lack of funding for maintenance leads to deterioration of road service, quality, and increase on transportation cost. In addition, poor integration of different modes of transportation limits the efficiency of the entire logistics system. Recognizing these challenges, we have identified priority areas for the development of transportation sector. First, it's moving from the road rehabilitation to the regular maintenance and asset management. This will allow us to ensure the long-term sustainability of the transportation network and the rational use of available resources. Second, improving the road safety is our first priority, requiring a comprehensive approach including infrastructure improvements, improved driving habits, and increased enforcement. Third is modernization of railway service that implies the renovation of tracks and facilities, as well as reforms in the organization of railway transport to improve the competitiveness and efficiency. Fourth is development of public-private partnership in the field of transportation and logistics. Attracting private investment and expertise will allow us to implement ambitious projects and improve the efficiency of transportation system management.
Ошентип, биз өлкөбүздүн муктаждыктарына жооп берген жана анын экономик өсүшүнө салым кошкон заманбап, коопсуз жана туруктуу транспорт системасын түзүүгө умтулабыз. Кыргыз Республикасынын туруктуу өнүгүү принциптерин бекем карманат жана транспорт системасынын айлана чөйрөгө тийгизген таасирин минималдаштырууга умтулат.
Thus, we create a modern, safe, and sustainable transportation system that meets the needs of our country and contributes to its economic growth. The Kyrgyz Republic supporting the principles of sustainable development and strive to minimize the environmental impact of the transport system.
Биз Париж келишиминин максаттарын толугу менен колдойбуз жана экологиялык жактан таза транспортту өнүктүрүүгө жигердүү кадам шилтеп жатабыз. Ушуга байланыштуу биз төмөнкүлөрдү чоң мүмкүнчүлүктөрдү көрүп жатабыз. Электр транспортун өнүктүрүүдө, автомобилдерди зарядтоочу станциялардын тармагынын инфраструктурасын түзүүгө жана алардын кеңири колдонуу үчүн стимулдарды киргизүүдө, büyüчү майлоочу каражаттарын чыгымдалышып кыскартууга багытталган заманбап технологияларды жана стандарттарды киргизүү аркылуу транспорттун энергетикалык натыйжалуулугун жогорулатууда, жеке автоунааларга көз карандылыгын азайтуу жана айлана чөйрөгө болгон жүктү азайтуу үчүн коомдук транспортту өнүктүрүү жана анын кызмат көрсөтүлгөн сапатын жана жеткиликтүү жогорулатууда. Азыртадан эле ысык көл айланма жолунун реконструкциялануу долбоорун ишке ашыруунун алкагында 100дөн ашык электр жүк ташуучу унаалар биринчи жолу колдонула баштады.
We fully support the goals of Paris Agreement and are actively promoting the development of clean transportation. In this regard, we see great potential in the development of electric transportation, the creation of infrastructure network of charging stations for electric vehicles and introduction of possibilities for their wider use. Improving the energy efficiency of transportation by implementing modern technologies and standards aimed at reducing fuel consumption. Developing public transportation and improving the quality of accessibility of the services in order to reduce dependence on private cars and reduce the burden on the environment. Right now, more than 100 electric trucks are already being used for the first time for the Isekul Ring Road construction project. This is an additional step towards sustainable development and environmental responsibility within the project.
Бул долбоордун алкагында туруктуулукка жана экологиялык жоопкерчиликте кара кошумча кадам болуп саналат. Ошондой эле Азия өнүктүрүү банкынын жардамы менен аткаруучу жана ишке ашыруучу агенттиктердин үчүн 150 адам үчүн ФИДИК боюнча көптөгөн тренингдер өткөрүлгөндүгүн өзүнчө белгилеп кетким келет. Азия өнүктүрүү банкынын жардамы менен биз эл аралык курулуш контрактынын чөйрөсүндө квалификацияны жана тажрыйбаны өркүндөтүүчү тренингдерди өткөрүүчү улантуу пландап жатабыз.
I would like to mention that ADB helped to organize numerous trainings on FIDIC for implementing and executing agencies, covering 150 people. We intend to continue arranging trainings to improve our skills and expertise in international construction contracts with ADB assistance.
Транспорттук инфраструктураны өнүктүрүү жолдору жана көпүрлөрдү куруу менен гана чектелбейт. Бул өлкөбүздүн келечегинде инвестиция, экономикалык өсүштүн жана ар бир жарандын бакубаттуулугунун кепилдиги. Биз Азия өнүктүрүү банкына туруктуу колдоосу үчүн терең ыраазычылык билдиребиз. Жана мындан аркы кызматыбыз жемиштүү болот деп ишенебиз. Бирге аракеттенип, биз Кыргызстандын жана бүткүл аймактын гүлдөп өсүшүнө негизи боло турган заманбап, туруктуу жана жеткиликтүү транспорт системасын түзө алабыз.
Transportation infrastructure development is not just about building roads and bridges. These are investment in the future of our country, a foundation for economic growth and increased prosperity of every citizen. We are deeply grateful to ADB for its continued support, and we are confident that our future cooperation will be fruitful. By joining efforts, we will be able to create modern, sustainable, and affordable transportation system, which will become the basis for growth of the Kyrgyzstan and entire region. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you so much, Honorable Minister, and it's inspiring to hear about the holistic approach to developing the transport system in Kyrgyz Republic, and also your vision to decarbonize transport and to address other externalities, including road safety and also strengthen asset management. So ADB will always continue to collaborate with Kyrgyz Republic and support you in this journey. So let me now invite our director, James Leather, to share the strategic direction for ADB's future transport sector assistance.
Thank you very much, Michael. Let me briefly give you an overview of the strategic directions. This is based on information we're hearing from our client government, some of it in direct requests for technical and financial support, but also looking slightly longer term, the discussions that are had around the periphery, how are governments dealing with climate issues, other international agreements, or the sheer investments required within infrastructure itself. So the vision of ADB's transport is efficient, clean, and resilient. But we are looking at multimodal transport solutions, both on the logistics sides, in urban transport, and we do see continued support for infrastructure, but also a shift to operational efficiencies, maintenance programs, and system management more generally. So the key trends and challenges, this is across the region. The investment decisions or requirements are huge. 560 billion, that's a B, so that's an awful lot of money is required annually for in transport infrastructure investments, climate adjusted, climate resilience, very important in terms of ensuring that those assets maintain and are ready for any future climate shocks, be those coastal surges, higher rainfalls, permafrost melting. We need considerable investments to upkeep climate resilience and climate proof those transport infrastructures. An increasing focus on decarbonization, both on the mitigation side, obviously the avoid, shift, improve approach, an increased focus from us in more efficient modes of transport. But at the same time, while there are significant investments required, the last 2-3 decades have seen considerable investments. The annual and perhaps more importantly, the periodical maintenance of our roads and the upkeep of our rail systems and urban transport systems is significant in ongoing investments in addition to the capital investments for new infrastructure as well. Urban areas, but also not forgetting the rural communities and leading to congestion and poor air quality and a number of those other components too. Road safety, there's many dimensions to this, but if we build the roads, are they safe? Are they affordable? Who is using those? Do you have private modes of transport, or what is the cooperative or public transport sides and freight movements? But in the region, road safety is a huge issue. As Wu Chong-um, our Managing Director General, mentioned in the opening remarks, someone dies on the roads of Asia and the Pacific every 30 seconds. And the number of serious injuries is around 10 times that. It's a serious issue that we and our partners must provide support to the governments to try and address the economic and the social impacts of loss of life and serious injuries. And on the logistics side, the region is producing an awful lot for the world, and that must be shipped out and across those. I mentioned that we are seeing a change in our portfolio, and this was also mentioned by Hideaki-san in the opening plenary. We were predominantly transport and in the roads subsector. It's still important, as was mentioned, but we are seeing a shift to other forms of transport, much more urban transport, much more rail, and as you can see in the light blue, an increase in other, which would cover aviation and maritime sectors, as well as logistics systems. So this is responding to our clients' needs. Many cities across the region have huge congestion issues, very poor air quality. How can we improve urban transport system management and operations with the investments? Logistics systems, long distance rail for freight and passenger movements, all very important. But the road's still there. But how do we make sure we build climate resilient road networks and upgrade that maintenance program as well? So the key focus areas, we are, as you've seen from the last slide, a lot of increased investments in rail and the urban transport side, but looking at road and on the logistics, rail, maritime, providing that, particularly on the freight movements as well. Perhaps more in urban, smart mobility. How can we use ITS, intelligent transport systems? What is the future bringing in terms of vehicle-to-vehicle communication or vehicle-to-infrastructure communication? Better signal settings so we can get more capacity out of the roads and the public transport systems or the freight networks we have. It's not all about big investments to provide that capacity. It may seem odd to say there's spare capacity on a lot of our transport systems, but if they're better managed, more capacity can become available, because at the moment we are seeing either potholes in the road or inefficient road layouts or poorly set traffic signals. Significant improvements can be made at a much lower cost if we look at the smarter type of mobility solutions and operations as well. And cross-cutting, I've mentioned the asset management and road safety, but as well as the resilience on the adaptation side, but e-mobility in the avoid and the shift parts of transport on the mitigation side too. I do apologize, there's an awful lot of text on this slide, so I'll let you read that, but just to sort of reiterate some of the key shifts that we're seeing. Digitalization, linked to what I said before, how can we better manage transport systems through use of digital technology, satellite imaging, smartphone technologies that can tell us the roughness index of our roads so we can better plan or make better decisions of where investments are required, or user interfaces on apps for public transport movements or urban mobilities as well, bringing all those in with the complex multi-sectoral, more on the infrastructure side as well. You must have heard a lot in the last day, and you will hear more over the coming week. ADB is the climate bank. We have a commitment for ADB finance for $100 billion cumulative finance out to 2030. So that is both on the adaptation and the mitigation side. That's a considerable commitment, with financial commitment backed up by technical support in terms of climate change. I'd like to stress that transport last year was responsible for about 48% of our climate finance. The largest in terms of the mitigation side, an awful lot of investments in e-mobility and rail side with that shift. but also on the adaptation side. We're quite close to our agriculture sector assistance in terms of the adaptation finance that we're providing, and that comes a lot in Type 2, climate resilient road maintenance programs, but also climate proofing of rail and road infrastructure and urban transport systems as well. So we are seeing this climate shift. The other aspect we're seeing is a lot of involvement of the private sector. There is a combination between the public sector, the sovereign support we're providing, and where the private sector comes in. And on the climate mitigation side, I just want to mention that a number of governments in the region have very well advanced e-mobility programs, as an example. And it's not surprising when that enabling environment has been put in by the governments, and just to list them, it's China, Vietnam, Thailand, Georgia, India, some of the more advanced decarbonization pathways that have been put in place. Our private sector arm, the non-sovereign lending, has been investing in e-mobility in those countries, because that clear government policy on the sovereign side has de-risked the investment decisions on the private sector side. So it becomes a clearer decision. Yes, there's the commercial tipping point in terms of the two-wheelers, the three-wheelers, the urban buses, where we're seeing e-vehicles are more advantageous than combustion engines. But if the policy is quite clear that there will be a phasing out of internal combustion engines, the investment decision, higher capital costs, but reduced operating costs, is accelerated because of the strong commitment that the government is making within there, which allows private sector investment to come in. So thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Michael.
So thank you for that, Jamie. And just to let you know, so ADB has published a transport sector directional guide that is available on the ADB website. So you can access that to learn more about what we say about our future direction. So now to the most interesting part of our session, where I would like to showcase to you our most transformative and innovative projects. So for that, I'll invite the speakers to come and take their seats, and then we'll start the presentations. So first, I'd like to invite Lloyd Wright, Senior Urban Development Specialist, Transport. Lloyd, please. And then Richard Hill, Executive Advisor, GHD. Richard, if you would like to come and take your seat next to Lloyd. And my colleague, Rebecca Stapleton, Senior Transport Specialist at ADB. And Inoyatullo, Project Manager, Tajikistan. And then last but not least, Ms. Jorgette Aquino, Assistant Secretary, Department of Transport, Philippines. So actually, Ms. Aquino, if you don't mind, you can start by your presentation and then you take a seat. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, executives, good morning. On behalf of the Department of Transportation's Railway sector, I would like to express our gratitude for having been invited to participate in this ADB's Transport Forum. So through this opportunity, we hope to shed light on the transformative vision of the Department of Transportation under the leadership of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and Transportation Secretary Jaime J. Bautista, encapsulated with the Build Better More campaign. Presently, Filipinos are forced to live a poorly invested mass transportation system, and Manila traffic is actually even infamous for being one of the worst in the world. So a study conducted by the Japan International Cooperation Agency finds that the traffic situation in Metro Manila alone cost the Philippine economy at least $44.9 million daily, or $22 billion annually. And this is actually expected to balloon to as much as $97 million daily, or $35 billion annually by 2035 if no solution is done. The railway systems play a vital role in the urban and rural development of a country. Now, in the case of the Philippines, several ongoing and upcoming railway projects are set to transform transportation infrastructure and contribute to the overall socio-economic growth of the nation. We acknowledge the potential of an efficient and modern rail network to bridge the gaps between our bustling urban centers and often neglected rural communities. By creating a comprehensive and interconnected rail system or network, we are laying the tracks for improved accessibility, faster travel times, and increased economic opportunities for all Filipinos. A robust railway system is not merely a matter of convenience. It is a strategic move to foster sustainable development. By promoting mass transit through railways, we reduce our carbon footprint, we mitigate traffic congestion, and create a more environmentally friendly mode of transportation, which actually aligns seamlessly with the President's 8th socio-economic agenda, which envisions improved transportation under the Bagong Pilipinas brand of governance. Now, by 2030, we aim to multiply our railway length by tenfold and connect key growth centers with emerging communities to equitably spur economic opportunities. These new railway lines are poised to play a pivotal role in the country's development agenda. And parallel to our construction efforts is the crafting of a 30-year Greater Capital Region Railway Master Plan, which will serve as the binding blueprint of the railway transport network envisioned for the country's capital. Now, today we will focus on updates regarding the country's largest railway project to date, which is the North-South Commuter Railway System Project, otherwise known as the NSCR. It is a 147-kilometer railway system that shall traverse key cities across Pampanga, Bulacan, Metro Manila, and Laguna. This 873 billion peso project is jointly funded by the Asian Development Bank and Japan International Cooperation Agency. There shall be 35 stations across the alignment, which mainly utilizes the historic Philippine National Railways, or PNR alignment. It is expected to have 600,000 to 800,000 passengers on the first year of operations. And it is expected to reduce travel time from Clark International Airport all the way to Calamba, Laguna from more than 4 hours, actually, down to 2 hours. Now, the government targets to operate the NSCR as early as the end of 2027, with partial operability initially set between Clark International Airport and West Valenzuela stations. As of the end of March, our construction progress is at 40.18% in the Tutuban to Malolos section, 29.26% for the Malolos to Clark section, and 4.15% for the Manila to Calamba. The Malolos to Clark section is funded under the Malolos-Clark Railway Project, or MCRP loan program of the ADB. Works are progressing in advanced stages across the 6 stations of this portion, namely in Kalumpit, Apalit, San Fernando, Angeles, Clark, and the Clark International Airport stations. Part of the MCRP loan is the construction of the Mabalacat Depot, which is set to be the largest railway depot in the country once completed. Meanwhile, the Manila to Calamba section of the NSCR, funded under the South Commuter Railway Project Loan Program of the ADB, has recently commenced actual construction works, starting from the recovery of the PNR tracks currently laid within the project right-of-way. The southern depot of the NSCR, located in Banlic, Laguna, is also included in the scope of the SCRP loan. Now, the NSCR is seen to produce huge direct socio-economic and environmental benefits through its operations. Travel time cost savings, or the monetary equivalent of the reduction in the amount of time commuters spend for travel, is actually calculated to be equivalent to 175 billion pesos annually, or 1.95 billion pesos daily. Vehicle operating cost savings, or the monetary equivalent of the reduction in the cost for commuters to own, operate, and maintain their own cars, is calculated to be equivalent to 34.8 billion pesos annually. Carbon emission savings, or the reduction in the production of carbon dioxide versus alternative transport modes, is calculated to be equivalent to 5.9 billion pesos annually, or 470,000 tons less carbon dioxide to be emitted by the more sustainable transport system. Now, these figures show that the NSCR project alone could significantly mitigate economic losses caused by the traffic congestion in the Greater Capital Region. Now, calculated on a per-user basis, one NSCR train set has the capability to remove more than 1,300 commuter vehicles from roadways at any given time during its operations. Its socio-economic benefits may also be drawn from the department's devotion to ensure the accessibility of the entire system. We have employed several measures, such as the configuration of the design of customer service counters, inclusion of tactile paths within station areas, adherence of the system signages, information displays, and public address systems to prevailing national accessibility standards. We also have the widening of the fare collection gates to allow wheelchair access, installation of safety barriers along the passenger pathway, and provisions of gender-neutral accessible comfort rooms and other initiatives. Now, along with the typical male and female toilets, multiple accessible gender-neutral toilets shall be implemented in all NSCR stations for passenger and staff use. This shall ensure that the NSCR caters to the needs of passengers with disability, senior citizens, pregnant women, partners with children, as well as providing a safe sanitary facility for people who do not identify with the gender binary. Provision of gender-based violence help desk and safety rooms in station areas. Now, in terms of sustainable design, the NSCR shall utilize photocatalytic membrane as a primary roofing material for some stations. This material is designed to absorb and decompose nitrogen oxide surrounding the stations. In total, the NSCR's 49,000 square meter of membrane roofing can actually decompose as much nitrogen oxide as more than 4,000 poplar trees can handle. So we are also developing transit-oriented development, or TOD plans, to aid local governments in building integrated and commuter-oriented residential and commercial communities, as well as public and civic spaces adjacent to the NSCR stations. These TOD plans, such as this, the Senate DepEd station located in Taguig, Metro Manila, offer new urban development strategies, particularly for the rural and emerging localities traversed by the project, thereby boosting the competitiveness of these future economic centers. To aid in the reduction of the NSCR's operational cost, we are also set to install solar panels on top of several stations, which are calculated to generate an estimated solar power output of more than 7,000 kilowatt peak. So the urban centers traversed by the NSCR will benefit from improved accessibility, reduced congestion, and enhanced business activities, while rural areas will reap the rewards of increased connectivity, agricultural productivity, and tourism potential. Let us assure all of you that the NSCR shall fulfill the promise of a comfortable, accessible, safe, sustainable, and affordable commuting experience across the Greater Capital Region. So thank you very much. Once again, good morning.
Okay, so thank you so much, Assistant Secretary. Unfortunately, she has to leave for another meeting, so it's a pleasure to have her for this moment. So next, I'd like to invite Mr. Inoyatullo to come and share on the Green Road Corridor demonstration project.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I welcome all of you and thank you for your time. Today, I am going to present a real case from Tajikistan following the Green Road Toolkit best practices for Dangara-Gulistan Road. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to discuss the vital infrastructure that supports our nation's internal transportation need, which are primarily met by an extensive road network spanning over 27,000 kilometers. The current Dangara-Gulistan road falls under the Republican roads in Tajikistan and a part of an international road, A370. So this network not only supports our current transportation needs, but is also an essential asset for our future development. Understanding and continuously improving this infrastructure is key to our nation's progress and integration into the broader regional and global economy. So it's my privilege to introduce the topic of our discussion today, the transformative Green Road initiatives in Tajikistan. Indeed, we can turn roads into nature positive, for example, in water management, local climate and biodiversity, public health, and mitigate the negative impacts. We are facing a future marked by intensifying climate change, with projections showing an increase in both average and extreme temperature, ranging from 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius by 2050 and as much as 6 degrees by the end of this century. So these climate shifts call for an urgent revolution of how we design, build, and maintain our infrastructure. Implications of climate change and specific risks impacting the Dangara-Gulistan road is increase in temperature and shifts in precipitation patterns. And the Dangara-Gulistan road is particularly vulnerable to flooding and landslides. Addressing this challenge requires proactive measures, including improved road design, enhanced drainage system, and continuous monitoring of vulnerable segments to ensure that connectivity and safety are maintained even under adverse climate conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Road Initiative is designed to revolutionize our approach to infrastructure by integrating sustainability at every turn. As the regular roads, we just focus primarily on connectivity, safety, and affordability. But the green roads extend these basics into a comprehensive framework and supports our environment and society in profound ways. Decarbonization, climate resilience, water and land management, reducing pollution, improving quality of life, preserving the biodiversity, disaster preparedness, sourcing material sustainability, fostering inclusive growth. So first of them is decarbonization. Just to mention that Dangara-Gulistan Road is a kind of pilot project in Tajikistan. and we're following the Green Road Toolkit best practices, and we applied several themes to this project. First is decarbonization and reuse of existing road materials. And this initiative begins with a thorough assessment and calculation and materials currently used in the road. And our plan includes separating usable materials and incorporating them back into the roadwork, aligning with our sustainability goals. LED lighting. We are calculating the energy consumption for each traffic light to switch to energy-efficient LED lighting. Actually, we are exploring the potential for integrating renewable energy sources along the road. Roadside tree planting, for example. An extensive tree planting plan is in place, which involves selecting appropriate species that contribute to biodiversity, designing and maintenance, a maintenance system that involves local communities, and ensuring sustainable practices throughout the life cycle of the project. Bioengineering sections in some critical sections to fight against erosion and stabilize landscapes, particularly along riverbanks and slopes. We are implementing bioengineering solutions tailored to the specific needs of each section. Rethinking road drainage in critical sections, assessing and possibly redesigning the drainage system to prevent flooding, including the addition of new culverts where it's necessary. Mud flow control from the top. We're actively mapping and measuring gullies to design effective mud flow diversion structures, which will help to manage seasonal runoff and prevent road damage. Water reuse option. Implementing system at the end of the drainage network to collect and reuse water, enhancing our environmental conservation efforts. For example, safe decommissioning and removal of petrol stations. We are identifying abandoned petrol stations, assessing soil contamination, and developing safe removal and remediation plans. Rethinking the icing strategy. Engaging with stakeholders to update and improve our de-icing methods, focusing on environmentally friendly materials and more efficient application strategies to reduce the impact on the surrounding ecosystem. Bioaccumulator plants in roadside vegetation. This is in line with the side road tree plantings. And improving of quality of life. So it's enhancing air quality and controlling dust through strategically placed vegetation, which also contributes to the aesthetics and ecological value of the road environment. And of course, additional livestock passage, collaborating with local pastoralists to determine the needs for livestock passage, ensuring that our road improvements consider the migratory patterns and safety of local wildlife. And the last one is a local sourcing plan to optimize engagement of local capabilities. And developing a local sourcing plan that encourages the use of local materials and labor, fostering economic growth within the community while reducing the carbon footprint associated with material transportation. So each of these interventions is designed not just to improve the structural and operation efficiency of the Angara-Gulistan Road, but also to ensure that it contributes positively to our environment and the communities it serves. By implementing these strategies, we anticipate significant cost savings, enhanced safety, and considerable environmental benefits, setting a new standard for road construction and maintenance in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, our discussion today highlights a series of transformative initiatives under the Green Road project, designed to elevate both the sustainability and the quality of life across Tajikistan. These strategies are not merely infrastructure improvements, they are investments in our future. By embracing decarbonization, enhancing biodiversity, improving water and land management, and integrating sustainable practices across all phases of road construction and maintenance, we are setting a course towards a more resilient and environmentally responsible future. These initiatives are crucial. I thank you all for your attention and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inoyatullo. And of course, you are aware that the Green Roads Toolkit was launched yesterday. Tomorrow we have a special session, actually a training on the Green Roads Toolkit. So you're all invited to come and participate, get your hands dirty, learn how to use the toolkit. If you don't have the time, feel free to approach our consultants who have a booth outside, and you can learn a bit more about the toolkit. And just a little bit more about it, we have a webinar series about the toolkit that happens every 2 weeks or so. So that will be starting again in a few weeks' time. So you're welcome to join. Right, so let's go to the next presenter. And for this, I'd like to invite Ms. Rebecca Stapleton, Senior Transport Specialist, to discuss the Shaanxi Mountain Road Safety Demonstration Project.
Thank you, Michael. And it is still good morning for 8 more minutes. So good morning, everybody. Unlike the panelists before me, this project is actually a completed project, which was completed at the end of 2020. Just as a quick snapshot, it was a $344 million project, which was implemented from 2015 to 2020. And it involved the improvement of approximately 840 kilometers of road, which went all the way from national highways to local roads. The objective of the project, or the outcome indicator target, was to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on the road network by 25%. And I'm very proud to report that this project exceeded that target and was able to achieve a 52% reduction of fatalities and a 33% reduction of serious injuries on the roads in which those improvements were made. We've seen monthly travel increase approximately 31% and trained over 200 professionals in different aspects of road safety, from engineering to enforcement. Over 2,400 students, teachers and parents participated in road safety education activities, and there was very strong collaboration between traffic police, education, and the Department of Transport through the project. So this picture just shows you a little bit of the terrain in which this project was implemented in the Qingba mountain areas in Shaanxi province in China. It was a road safety focused project rather than a road project which also implemented safety. So it was the very first ADB project which was standalone road safety investment. It was implemented under the Safe and Sustainable Transport priority as part of the 12th five-year plan of the PRC. And it was implemented in an area which had more than 4 times the national rate of injury and fatalities in the PRC. A survey of the initial roads, approximately 1,000 kilometers of roads, demonstrated that the Shaanxi province was spending approximately $83 million each year on injuries and fatalities from road crashes, which was about 0.3% of GDP. And during project design, China RAP conducted star ratings assessments of the network to identify some low-hanging fruit, but also to identify a very clear investment plan for opportunities to improve safety. Now, I mentioned it was a standalone road safety project and it followed the safe system approach. So what does that mean? It means not only creating safer roads through road safety engineering, but also safer users through education and enforcement, as well as improving road safety management. So it touched on the whole system. We did have some hesitation from the government, and I'm looking directly at Ms. Ma from the executing agency, who's with us here today in the audience. There was some hesitation around who's what right does the Department of Transport have to tell the traffic police to enforce speed limits better? Or what right does the Department of Transport have to tell the Education Department what to incorporate in their curriculum? There was also some hesitation on the engineering side of implementing road safety treatments that weren't incorporated into the national design standards at that point in time. So there's one last thing to mention is there was also perhaps a misunderstanding that road safety interventions are expensive, and how could we justify the additional cost in the project? So we overcame these solutions from ensuring that a very easy to understand road safety action plan was developed all the way back at project preparation phase. So using the International Road Assessment Program star rating tool, the China RAP team had evidence-based, very clear investment plans set up for the road safety interventions. Use of a local and very capable team also provided confidence in the government side in terms of investing in these solutions. There had also been a previous pilot project implemented in the PRC using this IRAP approach. So although it was new to our project area, it was not completely unheard of. And having those measurable outcomes with very clear economic benefits attached to the safety interventions made it very easy to have the conversation of the value for money and return on investment for these features with the Ministry of Finance. In terms of the resistance to cross-departmental collaboration, which comes from having separate KPIs and separate funding mechanisms, stakeholder engagement was extremely important, but also having a champion within the government team to help to build those relationships and bring people to the table was very important. So as I mentioned before, this was ADB's first application of the IRAP star ratings all the way from design all the way through to post-construction. And using IRAP evaluation in the economic evaluation really helped to justify the importance of these safety interventions. This was then integrated with road safety education and awareness using human-centered design principles, so co-designing that curriculum with the students themselves. And it successfully coordinated at the local level between transport bureaus, traffic police and schools to ensure the sustainability of the safety outcomes in the project areas. I just wanted this, this diagram just shows all the different places in which IRAP was used in the project. And this was very much an interactive design process which enabled quantitative infrastructure safety targets to be set and monitored throughout project implementation and at project completion. These are just some photos showing the types of interventions that were included on the project. And I think one thing that's important to highlight is it also included some quite significant road realignment to reduce some of the two-star sections. The image on the bottom in the middle, I'm not sure if this works, yeah, is outside one of the schools. And then the school education was implemented in conjunction with infrastructure. And I think that's something else that's very important to highlight is that behaviour change and education in road safety on its own it has been shown not to be effective to reduce crashes. But when you can implement the education in collaboration with infrastructure improvements that specifically focus on the safety of those vulnerable users, of those pedestrians, that's where we see good outcomes. And that community engagement went all the way through. So as I mentioned, the education was co-designed with the children. For example, we did a baseline assessment which showed that only 52% of students recognized what a yellow traffic light meant. So when we say we co-designed that education program, we spent the time during the project to understand what the risk factors were for those students and ensured that that education was tailored to their needs, as well as tailored to the specific road safety infrastructure improvements that were being made on the project. So where we're installing zebra crossings, pedestrian crossings, making sure then that the students and the vehicle users in that community understood what that really means and how to behave, and then bringing the police in to ensure that those behaviours were enforced. And these are just some photos of that human-centred design approach, which shows the children getting involved on the ground, improving in painting safety signs on the poles outside of their school, and building those awareness posters themselves. The media was also quite critical in sharing the lessons of this project throughout the project and building that community engagement all the way through. And as I mentioned, police. So the police actually became quite supportive throughout this project, and it has shown that the importance of those local relationships. I would just like to share in closing one key lesson learned would be that we were lucky with the relationships that were built on the local level with all of those stakeholders. But if we could then institutionalize that and set those up in the steering committees of the project from the very beginning, then that would be a very good way to make sure those investments are sustainable and replicable in other parts of the provinces or the countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. And actually, elements of this innovative road safety demonstration project has been replicated in other countries. So for example, the mainstreaming of IRAP in Pakistan was inspired by this project. So we're very keen to replicate these good projects in other countries. Right, let me now invite Mr. Richard Hill to discuss maritime transport challenges in the Pacific and insights from one of our projects there.
Thanks, Michael. Welcome, everyone. Pleased to meet you all. Yeah, just going to share some highlights from phase 2 of the Kiribati Outer Islands Transport Infrastructure Investment Project, COITIP, which is the term I use in the presentation, with a focus on maritime transport as part of this particular session. Just a bit of background and context setting for you. For those not familiar with Kiribati, 32 atolls, one raised island, across a very vast area of the Pacific Ocean, the only nation actually that spans the north, south and east western hemispheres. Extremely vulnerable to climate change and natural disasters, with sea levels and king tides obviously inundating parts of islands and people's homes throughout the years at the moment. A total population around 120,000 with projected quite strong growth on that as well, which is exacerbating population density challenges in South Tarawa. There's been a migration from outer islands to South Tarawa over recent years. That's continuing. And equally, then there's a low population density in outer islands that still require maritime transport connectivity, freight goods, and good connectivity to be able to get to centres for health and education and the like. The COITIP Phase 2 project is actually Phase 2 of a bigger project. So Phase 1, it was instigated in 2017. It's a co-funded project between ADB and World Bank. Multimodal transport, so it has a focus on maritime transport as well as the land transport aspects. It's been running from 2017 and the Phase 1 is currently at an implementation stage. And involvement in that is a focus of infrastructure investments at 4 outer islands that were selected as part of that process. And included in that is some investment for search and rescue equipment and facilities, which were urgently needed, and some rehabilitation of some road transport linkages across the causeways. The Phase 2 aspect builds on Phase 1. It's the assessment of the maritime transport sector. And it's also an assessment of the capacity of the regulatory teams that are tasked with regulating the sector. So the Marine Division of MICT, who were a key focus for us in terms of their future capacity and needs to support their operations going forward. And as part of the objectives of that study is to prepare a roadmap to guide future capability, investments and priorities. And there's some funding allocated to a feasibility study piece, which is to come. We're including the due diligence on an agreed set of interventions or infrastructure improvements, which we are in the process of identifying what they will be. So our baseline assessment, our detailed assessment of the maritime transport sector and its connectivity is complete, and we're ongoing with a project study that's running through to 2025. Just some important aspects, and I guess the theme of this session is to highlight highlight the highlights, what the unique elements of delivering projects for ADB. So we've worked in very close collaboration with the Marine Division of MICT and stakeholders as well. And this work has been informed by the valuable data that they've made efforts and time to collect and share with us. So we've done detailed shipping analysis as best we can with the data that's available on passenger movements, and significant stakeholder engagement across government, industry as users as well, to get a really sort of strong evidence base to support the roadmap. The roadmap does then recommend interventions for all outer islands and gateway ports as well, and some of these projects are obviously under guidance of other initiatives. And it identifies the critical administrative and capacity building actions as well for key agencies in the roadmap. It provides a pathway for that Marine Division to become the Kiribati Maritime Authority, the leading maritime regulatory authority in Kiribati, and promotes a safer, more connected, secure and sustainable service for freight and both passenger movements in Kiribati. Importantly, it links tourism, it links fisheries, agriculture and education, and through to access to health and schools for Kiribati members. Just sort of some of the challenges that you may well be familiar with. So the fleet of vessels, domestic vessels in Kiribati numbers 71 commercial vessels and over 350 very small vessels. Not all of those are registered and known about. There is a frequent occurrence of non-compliance with regulatory requirements, and the ability of the Marine Division to enforce those is pressured by the distance, the sheer distance of the land, of the sea state, and the spread of the atolls, and also the number of the fleet and the vessels that are moving around all the time. The sector generally is focused on freight movements, not passenger movements, and so there's a high variability in connectivity for passengers or public to be able to get to Tarawa and back again. And the vessels that are procured may often be granted or donated and bought second hand, and they're not configured to suit the infrastructure settings at the outer islands, and so they can't often get in. There's cancellations, there's delay, and equally a lot of the cargo is handled in loose form. And the impacts are shown there on the chart, but fair to say there's environmental impacts, social impacts and economic impacts that come from that situation. The geographic spread is obviously a key characteristic of the outer island aspects. The reefs and shallow waters generate hazards for navigation in, and where vessels can't get in and they have to transfer both people and cargo out at sea, that's in all weather after a 2-day ship or sailing out to that location. So you can appreciate the challenges that generates. There's lots of manual handling, and as an additional impact, that sort of prohibits environmental tourism growth and the appetite for international visitors to come in and join Kiribati, which is obviously a key economic stream that Kiribati should be focusing on trying to capture. So the roadmap has sort of tackled governance regulatory challenges as well, as I said. There's budget shortfalls from the Marine Division and other actors in the sector who support the sector. And clearly there's obviously government structures that are, I'd say, old school, but in a way that don't necessarily address independence and address competitive conflicts of interest in that particular manner, either commercial interests rather than safety-focused aspects. There's also key issues with the availability of facilities and equipment, lacks of vessels and infrastructure across the teams and the departments that work there from that perspective. And clearly there's a need to address the infrastructure resilience and durability as well. There is a growing portfolio of domestic port infrastructure through the investments like ADB are making that needs to be accounted for under a robust asset management plan and system, and there needs to be accountability across the various departments to sort of take ownership of those resources that are going to be coming. And equally, a resilient design approach is required to ensure robustness and performance of those future investments going forward, with obviously the impacts of climate change coming and natural hazards as well. So the action plan, we've been through a process that's shown there, identifying project themes and focus areas, aligning those to the Kiribati vision, building that action plan with detailed actions, and assigning owners and timeframes to those actions that go forward. And we're in the process of seeking feedback from those stakeholders to support the project delivery and get that buy-in. In total, there's 46 specific actions, a whole range of sub-actions that sit in there, sub-level activities that help break down the activity in terms of meaningful actions and deliverables. And each action provides a background information, the rationale for that time frame and ownership. We prioritise the actions using an assessment tool, a prioritisation tool, and it provides a guiding sort of framework for the timing or sequencing of works in outer islands on an island-by-island basis. That tool has been developed from the baseline assessment, and we've identified 12 criteria that are relevant to the performance of the system to the outer island services. So we've got those 12 criteria. We've got a 5-tier scoring system we can apply to the needs outer islands on those criteria. We've got an ability or importance factor weighting system to weight those criteria, which again needs the inputs from the community. And then it allows us to do an assessment of the island with the ability to sensitivity test the impacts of those importance criteria. That's one example of how that tool works, to give us an indication of the needs and urgency of addressing different outer islands, depending on how you apply those weightings to those criteria and the scores that are applied in the gaps or deficiencies that exist in the current settings. And we're obviously on a process of working through that with stakeholders to get their buy-in that picture is correct, and this then can be used to support the timing and rollout of the roadmap actions in time. There's also demand for infrastructure interventions in the outer islands, and there's a clear demand for navigational infrastructure improvements and we'll say port infrastructure improvements, but berth infrastructure, rampways and the like. So we've also done an assessment of the needs of those interventions across the outer islands, and that's to be verified with further site visits. But we focus on navigational infrastructure and berth infrastructure requirements at the moment. And this approach highlights the commonality of those interventions across the outer islands, and then that promotes this discussion as to whether the next phase should be a programme of works across multiple islands, or whether it actually should be an individual island by island basis of discrete sets of different works. But you can see on that chart there's common interventions include need for channel dredging or removing hazards, navigation hazards, removal works, followed by rampways, further hydrographic surveys and anchorages. And you could see some benefit of being able to tackle a large share of those outer islands with removing those hazards for the existing fleet to be able to get into protected waters would be a great dramatic improvement in the safety of system of operations for Kiribati. The next steps for us, in-country workshops with those stakeholders to verify that feedback and the draft of the roadmap. We want the stakeholders to contribute to that assessment of the prioritisation of the outer islands, and also verify the status of the intervention needs on those outer islands as well. And then we're going to agree a programme of works that will be applied to the COITIP Phase 2 investment for the implementation study that will be coming at the back end of this year into 2025, which is that feasibility study and due diligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're running a bit late. However, if we get time, we will take a question or two. So please put in your questions through the app. Right, last but not least, to share with you how ADB is working with the government of Pakistan to transform urban transport in the major cities, I'd like to invite Lloyd, and Lloyd will share with you one of our most awarded projects in recent years. So no pressure, Lloyd.
Thank you, Michael. Maybe not. No worries. Good day, everyone. As you may have heard over the course of these days, smart urban mobility is a major investment priority for ADB. Thanks. And certainly, Pakistan has become one of our core partners in making this vision come true. Now, in all of these major projects in Pakistan, they generally have all 5 of these components. So they're certainly anchored in a mass transit project, but we also place a lot of priority in the investment in cycling and walking, in managing traffic for all vehicles, not just the public transport, making non-fare revenue from parking management and other sources, very important in terms of balancing the books, and finally, ensuring the institutional capacity is there to make it sustainable into the future. Another common feature is these are very integrated, cross-sectoral. So every one of the images that you see up on the screen are actually components in our Karachi project. And the synergies are quite astonishing. The sum of each of these components is much greater than each one individually. So the first project I'm going to talk about is our Peshawar Bus Rapid Transit project. And this is a project actually in operation. It began operating in August 2020, and I'm proud to say today it's carrying some 320,000 passengers every day, and that full network that you see up on the screen is happening right now. Now, to give you a better look and feel of how this all comes together, I'm going to show you a little video from the project right now.
जब से शुरू हुई तो मैं सफ़र करूं जो हम 1 घंटा 2 घंटा लगाते थे आम लोकल बस में तो अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह IBRT में आधे घंटे में हम यूनिवर्सिटी पहुंच जाते हैं।
हमें ट्रांसपोर्ट के हवाले से बहुत ज़्यादा मसाइल थे और हमारी कम्युनिटी को जब भी वो सफ़र करते थे किसी भी गाड़ी में तो पहले उनको बिठाया नहीं जाता था और जब बैठ जाते थे तो ड्राइवर्स की तरफ से और लोगों की तरफ से बहुत ज़्यादा हैरासमेंट का सामना करना पड़ता था। लेकिन BRT में जब से हमारे लिए 2 स्पेशल सीट्स मुख्तस की गई हैं तो हमारे ख्वाजा सराओं को बहुत ज़्यादा फ़ायदा हुआ है और हम अब पुरवकार तरीके से बाइज़्ज़त तरीके से और कम पैसों में सफ़र कर सकते हैं।
यूनिवर्सली हम देखते हैं कि ट्रांसपोर्टेशन एक्सेसिबिलिटी और पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज़ के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा इशू रहा है। BRT में हमें बहुत सी फैसिलिटीज़ दी गई है। अफराद बाहम माजूरी के लिए एक अलग व्हील चेयर के लिए पार्किंग के लिए जगह मुहैया की गई है। एलिवेटर के ज़रिए बस तक हम जा सकते हैं। सारी चीज़ें एक्सेसिबल है। ऐसी एक हमारे लिए एक आप कह सकते फैसिलिटी हमारे लिए प्रोवाइड की है जो कम कीमत में और बखूबी अंदाज में हम अच्छी तरीके से काम भी कर सकते हैं और इजीली जा सकते हैं अपने घरों तक।
We are using BRT as a very facilitate transportation so far. It has given us many facilities. Before we used to take local buses that could consume our time way much. We couldn't reach at any points.
Now, due to that impressive performance, thank you. We're very proud of this project. It's been bestowed with over 15 international accolades, including the world's best ticketing system, to being the first gold standard bus rapid transit system in the entire subcontinent. So we're very, very happy with the outcome. Now, the second project I want to talk about is a project actually in construction right now, and that's in Karachi, a mega city of 15 million people, one of the largest cities in the world actually without a formal public transport system, so very challenging. And I must say this is a partnership not just with the Asian Development Bank, but also our friends at the French Development Agency, at the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the Green Climate Fund. And one unique aspect of this project is where we source our fuel. One of the observations of the city is a portion of the city called Baines Colony. There's over 1 million cattle and buffalo, and it is a real environmental tragedy. The waste from these animals flow into the streets in the community, a relatively low-income community, and then go directly into Karachi Bay, basically making the bay biologically dead. It also, you can go out onto the bay and actually see the methane bubbling through, because as the animal waste decomposes, it turns into one of the most potent types of greenhouse gases in the form of methane. Here's a little, another video clip, very short one, on this process. Now, this project is very unique in the sense that it's not just carbon neutral, but because we're avoiding that methane going out of control, this is actually a carbon negative project. Another aspect of the project is on climate resilience. Now, when I say Karachi, to most of you, you think arid, desert, extreme heat, and it is certainly on the front line of climate change in that respect. But out of 12 months, 1 month a year comes the seasonal monsoon, and it becomes inundated. Many of you may recall from a couple years ago reading about the tragedy across Pakistan with the devastating floods. This is our corridor, by the way, and clearly public transport of anything is going to struggle in these conditions. So we are making a major investment in this project in climate resilient, nature-based drainage system featuring a lot of what we call bioswales, so greenery along the corridor to capture rainwater. And anywhere we can, we are putting permeable surfaces, so the tiles on the bikeway or the pedestrian path. And beneath what you cannot see is a detention cell, which is this massive structure collecting the water. And then for the other 11 months of the year, we use that water that we've collected during the monsoon for gray water uses across the city. We're also opportunistically grabbing water from the busway itself. If you think about it with a busway, unlike a traffic lane, you don't actually use the middle of the lane, so we put what we call a lane strip, which is another form of a bioswale, which also has the added benefit of reducing noise by 40% from the vehicle because the earthen material captures the noise. It also gives good legibility to the corridor. In this final slide, I just want to show you, it's a rendering from the Karachi project. And just to show you, there's a lot more going back to that integrated slide earlier. This is actually a 54-acre park that is being constructed as part of the project. So it's got a new lake, an entertainment zone, sports fields. The one thing you don't see under that cricket pitch there, of course it's got a cricket pitch, it's Pakistan, but under that cricket pitch is a bus depot for 350 BRT vehicles. But the major point here, this is going to be a game changer for public space in Karachi. And we really want to emphasize there's a lot more to mobility than just mobility. These projects are really about city transformations. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that was very inspirational for everybody. So we are coming to the end. We only have maybe one or two questions. And I'd like to, have the honor to ask it to our only government official on the panel, Mr. Inoyatullo. So I think you discussed lots of innovative ideas inspired by the Green Roads Toolkit that you're demonstrating on the project. But what is the role of communities what the role that communities are playing, businesses and civil societies on the project, and how are they involved in all these Green Roads ideas?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Indeed, we're always in a very close cooperation with the local communities, despite of any project cycle that we are. But specifically for the Dangara-Gulistan project, we are applying a new approach. We are preparing a local source planning where we are going to engage the locals not only for the construction, but on the same time we are going to engage them also for the maintenance period. This will be a kind of the transformation of the knowledge for the local communities that they are going to use the road and at the same time to keep a proper maintenance, especially for the tree plantings and bioengineering activities. So we are going to prepare this plan and put it in the tender documents for the contractors so that the contractors or the bidders will know in advance that this is a kind of mandatory requirements from the client side.
Thank you. That's inspiring. So maybe let me go to Lloyd, because one of the interesting things I heard here was about the waste to energy initiative. I think that's really, really great. But how sustainable is this? So I imagine at some point the waste will all, get consumed. What happens next?
So I always get the question about the cows, and are you really using cow poo to operate the vehicles? But you do get the question, is it sustainable? Is it replicable? And I will say, you may have a city, maybe you don't have 1 million cows in your city, but don't despair. Biomethane can be processed from sewer and sanitation waste. It could be processed from food waste, agricultural waste, from landfills. So, and actually it's even better, the more variety and diversity of waste streams you have. And as you know, in many of our cities across the region, waste management, solid waste management is a real issue. All of us here, we're all transport nerds, so we often don't understand what's happening on, say, waste management side. But this is sort of, the Karachi project is unique in that both transport and waste management are dire needs in that city, and it's wonderful to have a project that sort of can address both of those simultaneously.
Thank you. So Beck, just a quick one. So that was quite actually interesting. It's the first road safety, standalone road safety project for ADB. Since then, we have not really been able to process another standalone road safety project. What do you think needs to happen to open the door? Because I think investment in road safety is critical if we need to meet the target of 50% reductions in fatal and serious injuries by 2030.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, that's a good point. Although I would say we haven't processed any standalone road safety projects. What we have, I think, done in a lot of our countries is mainstreamed the inclusion of road safety in other projects. And we've seen, for example, in Mongolia, we're using the IRAP assessments to make sure that design improvements are being made before investing in major corridor improvements. Because Shanchi gave us the data to show that these improvements do provide economic benefits across the system and that they are worth investing in. But what we would like to see is our governments coming to us and requesting projects which look at the entire safe system so that we can make sure that those road safety investments are sustainable. They are very important as well as we want to see more green transport, more active mobility. You can't have active mobility without making it safe. And so I would like to ask as well for all the transport ministries in the world to collaborate with your health ministries, because one of the other things that we know is that although the cost might be experienced by the Ministry of Transport, the savings are under the Ministry of Health. So if we can go to the Ministry of Finance together and share that whole system-wide improvement, that would be great.
Great. So finally, Richard, I'll pose to you a question from the audience. So, Richard, how does a country like Kiribati go about modernizing its fleet of vessels when these are privately owned and the cost or the desire to upgrade is likely beyond the local operators?
Sorry,
So how does a country like Kiribati go about modernizing their fleet of vessels when most of these are privately owned and the cost of these upgrades are beyond local operators?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I think there needs to be a review of how we can bring those operators on board into the support system through policy and government settings to ensure that they can operate cost effectively and continue and maintain, obviously, a system that allows them to maintain their vessels, pay their crew well, and support the safety aspects that are required to make their operations but both viable, efficient, and safe from that perspective. So I think good policy and good governance settings to encourage their entry into the market, awareness of the regulatory system that they're going to be entering into, and how they're going to operate from that perspective. But equally to then look at systems such as subsidy over time that can be there to support their startup, that can then be reduced over time as their operations become trusted and the use increases and their revenue streams for their own means are then becoming more sort of self-sufficient, and the subsidies can be reduced over time and directed to other services perhaps.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session today. I hope you found it interesting. Can you please give a round of applause to our presenters?